Welcome to Tree Book Passages, the podcast that showcases quotes from our favorite tree books to springboard conversations about trees, forests, and people. I'm Georgia Silvera Seamans, the host of Your Bird Story and a lapsed arborist.
And I'm Doug Still, host of This Old Tree podcast. And Georgia, our book today is Finding the Mother Tree, Discovering the Wisdom of the Forest by Suzanne Simard. This was a national bestseller and a very popular book. Simard has become well known for her work as a forest scientist, specifically regarding her research on interspecies cooperation and communication within forest ecosystems. We could probably talk for hours on this, but in a nutshell, Finding the Mother Tree is about large trees that serve as hubs for vast below-ground fungal networks of mycorrhizae. Mycorrhizae have mycelial threads called hyphae that exist in the soil and attach to roots, creating a mutualistic relationship that benefits both trees and the fungi. This network of fungi also allows for the passport of water, nutrients, and chemical signals between trees and plants, allowing the whole system to work together in order to thrive and weather disturbance like drought, insect infestation, or what have you. With that science at its core, this book is a wonderful piece of nature writing that tells of Simard's personal journey as a scientist in Western Canada. She writes of her personal experiences as a young forester making these observations for the first time. Her theories were somewhat controversial at the time because forest ecology focused more on competition between trees rather than a more sort of cooperative ecology. This book revels in her journey of scientific inquiry and as a reflection on her life as well. The passage I'd like to read comes from chapter 5.
My quote also comes from the same chapter 5. This is very curious that we've both chosen to feature passages from the same chapter, Doug. It feels like this chapter is a turning point, both personally and professionally, especially the latter.
Yeah, it starts at a time when Simard is sort of stinging with confusion about why she didn't get hired for a forestry job while her colleague did, despite her hard work. The chapter begins with her hiking with her mom in the Monashee Mountains of British Columbia, where they are both from. She is looking for answers. Here's my quote. By afternoon, we'd set up our tent on a rock ledge. I hung our food high in a subalpine fir, clearly the parent of the young ones growing around its base, to discourage any bears. Below us shone Lizzie Lake like a jewel nestled in green velvet, and above beckoned a glacier outflow pocked with small alpine lakes. We spent the afternoon climbing over the scoured rocks and dipping our toes in the pools. Look at the lichen on this rock, Mum. A red pie-shaped crust was bordered with whitish fungal filaments radiating outward. A symbiosis. A fungus took a lichen to an alga, I said. She pursed her lips at my joke and said, "Kinda looks like the dried puke I cleaned up in the boys' washroom last week." Mom was a teacher, a remedial consultant in an elementary school where she worked with little kids struggling with reading, writing, and math. I exclaimed over another patch, a deeper bed of lichen-crusted humus on the rock, with white mountain heathers sprouting from the center. The tiny flowers hung like fairy bells on top of short, snaking stems clad in leathery, scaly leaves. The heathers looked happy in their bed of lichen soil. The roots of the lichens, the rhizines, exuded enzymes to break down rock, while the lichens' bodies contributed organic material, and together they made humus for plants to root and grow. I tugged at one of the heathers, but it was solidly anchored in the lichen-spawned humus. Would I find roots with a net of fungus attached? Or a truffle? I hated to ruin this oasis by looking for mycorrhizas, so I checked my plant guide. The heathers formed a symbiosis with the coil-like ericoid fungi, the same type I discovered on the huckleberries at Stryan Creek with Jean. These lichen fungi turned rocks into sand and released minerals, slowly making soil that other plants could grow in. When I read the passage aloud to Mom, she nodded. Makes sense. It just takes one plant to get going, then the others come along. She pointed to larger islands of green that had manufactured thicker layers of organic matter over other rocks. Pink mountain heathers and crowberries had roots in the crust. Some even housed sprigs of shrubs. Dwarf huckleberries, I said, indicating that short stems growing in the lichen humus loaded with tiny blue berries. This species only grew in the alpine. Not like the huckleberries at Granny Winnie's. Mum and I picked a few, wandering from patch to patch. Granny Winnie would know how to grow a garden here. She had to, I said. Mum laughed. Her mother could grow something from almost nothing. She just needed seeds, compost, and water. It's like teaching kids to read, she said. Give them the basics, and bit by bit they will learn. Mom, I feel sick that they gave my job to Ray, I blurted. What should I do? She stopped her berry picking and faced me. Apply for another job, Susie, she said matter-of-factly. Pick yourself up. Use what you learned from the company, from that guy Ted, and don't look back. I don't understand it. I didn't screw up. I didn't want to let go of what I felt was an injustice. Maybe they weren't ready to hire you. You'll find something even better. She was right. Why was I so impatient? Mom wasn't. She could build up the sounds of the alphabet with her students for months. She cared for us day by day in little ways that added up. Come to think of it, the lichens and mosses and algae and fungi were also steady as could be, gradually building up the soil, quietly in tandem. Things and people working together so that something noticeable could occur. Like the way Mom and I visited, made the time to be in step together, each moment connecting us more closely until we were made whole, our love rich and varied and deep-rooted between us.
Doug, I also enjoyed that interaction between mother and daughter and the mention of the grandmother too, this sort of matrilineal thread that is a significant part of this book. I did not expect to respond so emotionally to the book as I did. Honestly, it was hard to read this book, and I'm actually listening to the audiobook version. So it was hard to listen to this book without crying in every chapter.
Yeah, there's a lot of emotion in it.
A lot of emotion. I've bookmarked many sections, but the one I'd like to share today is from chapter 5, as you've just read. The title of the chapter is Killing Soil. And in this chapter, Simard completes some of her first research experiments, which literally involve killing soil. She and her sister, who helps her at various points, found the experimental protocol deeply disturbing. But the results of a 5-year study ends up supporting her initial observations and intuitions when she was a seasonal employee at a timber company. And one of the reasons I picked this particular passage is that for me, it seemed like a really clear transition in her confidence about not just her intuition, but about her observations as a growing scientist. And so this piece really resonated with me, and I wanted to share it with listeners. On the day I left my experiment, I stopped to absorb the forest's wisdom. I walked up to an elder birch along the Eagle River where I had collected the soil for transferring to the planting holes. Running my hands across the papery bark, stretched across its wide, sturdy girth, I whispered the tree thanks for showing me some of its secrets, for saving my experiment. Then I made it a promise to learn how trees sense and signal other plants, insects, and fungi, to get the word out. The death of fungi in the soil and the breakdown of the mycorrhizal symbiosis held answers about why the little yellow spruce in my first plantations had been dying. I'd figured out that accidentally killing the mycorrhizal fungi also killed trees. turning to the native plants for their humus, and putting the fungi and the humus back into the plantation soil helped the trees. In the distance, helicopters were spraying the valleys with chemicals to kill the aspens, alders, and birches in order to grow cash crops of spruces, pines, and firs. I hated this sound. I had to stop it.
And listeners, if you like what you heard, you can purchase Finding the Mother Tree by Suzanne Simard using the affiliate link on this page. 10% goes to support our efforts, and 10% goes to support local bookstores. Thanks for joining us on Tree Book Passages. See you next time.
And keep reading.